In today's video, I have to survive 100 days on Skull Island. I have 3 objectives. First, create a stage 3 tree mansion. Second, find and defeat the elusive swamp creature, the Sirenjaw. And third, to try and find the last of its kind, Kong, the protector of Skull Island. Looks like we finally arrived at Skull Island.
All right, let's stick together. You lead the way.
Okay, let's go.
Forrest, watch out!
Whoa, help! It's taking me away!
Don't worry, I'm gonna get you.
Ah! Get off of me. Oh no. Oh my gosh, okay, there's water, thank goodness. I'm gonna have to find Painful as well. And so I began my journey trying to survive on Skull Island. I started by getting wood and stone tools, and I noticed only a small percentage of you guys are actually subscribed. So make sure to subscribe to keep up to date on the latest content. It's greatly appreciated and is completely free. So after getting stone tools, I ended up running into a pack of psycho vultures and ran away. So I found some cows. I noticed it was already getting dark. So I looked around for a cave to take shelter in and ended up running into even more psycho vultures. I ran away again, and while climbing a mountain, I ended up running into a cave. So I smelted up my food, mined some coal, and ventured a bit further into the cave to find a bunch of iron, and made iron tools and an iron chest plate. I then found some sugarcane, chopped down a bunch of grass to get seeds, found some sheep, and then started to get to work on building my base next to a nearby river. I made sure to build a balcony right off the back of my house so I could fish in the river. I thought I heard something in the rain, so I went outside. Oh my gosh. Please don't spot me. Please don't spot me. Okay. I think he's walking away. I'll need to relocate later. I don't want to risk getting caught by this guy. So after that terrifying encounter, I went back inside for a little bit, but then I decided to work on my farms right next to my base. I bone mealed some wheat to bring over some cows, chopped the cows underneath my base, and then I went to sleep. On day 6, I planned on fishing, but ended up realizing there was a lot of salmon in the river. So I just went fishing with my axe instead, and once I had a bunch of food, I decided to go out mining. Found a cave and mined a bunch of coal, a bunch of iron, found some emeralds as well, and then crafted myself full iron armor, a shield, mined some lapis, and found a skeleton spawner. Inside of the chest was a god apple, melon seeds, and a record. On my way back home from a mining trip, I ended up running into a frog, which ended up being poisonous. So I had to take out the frog, unfortunately, which actually got me down to half health. Once I returned to base, I got a bunch of wheat, replanted my farms, planted my melons, mined a bunch more wood, and while exploring in the jungle, I ended up running into a tiger, which immediately started to attack me. I took an initial hit, but started to block its hits with my shield, and it was doing a ton of damage. I had to use my shield strategically, otherwise I was gonna die. It got me down to 1 heart, and I kept on blocking its hits, landing 1 hit, and then landing the final hit, breaking my iron axe. Luckily, I had a spare one, but I ended up running into another tiger, so I ran away. Now, knowing how dangerous this island really was, I ended up building walls around my base to keep out hostile mobs. I also lit up around the base as well, and then I decided to return back to my skeleton spawner, and I ended up spending the next couple of days creating a skeleton grinder. Having an infinite supply of bones, arrows, and EXP was going to be a huge help to my progression. So after finishing creating the grinder, it worked just as intended, and I was getting lots of EXP, bones, and arrows. So I spent the next day collecting a lot of XP, and went back home with my materials, created a giant crafting table, created enhanced bone meal, mined some jungle leaves to get some jungle saplings, and then I used the enhanced bone meal, jungle saplings, and the crafting table to make a tier 1 tree house. I gathered up all my stuff and relocated to build my base next to the skeleton spawner. I found a good spot on top of the hill and placed down my tier 1 tree house. Up sprang the tree house. This one was pretty compact, but I liked the look of it, so I moved everything into the new base, went back to my old base to gather the wheat again, got my melons, and then I decided to go exploring for the next couple of days. When crossing a river, I ended up getting attacked by a bunch of ghoulfish. These guys are kind of terrifying, but luckily I had a shield, so I was able to take most of them out and get away. After another day of travel, I ended up finding some sort of temple in the distance. And then while crossing the river, I got jumped by a bunch more ghoulfish. There was way more than last time, so I was only able to take out a few and had to run to the shore. So I healed up and went into the temple. There was gold ore everywhere in the temple walls, so I mined it, went up to the top, and realized there was a book inside of an item frame. I opened the book and it read, "The zombie serpents of the east have decimated the native megaprimatus. It won't be much longer until the island is completely overrun," and then the book cuts off from there. What on earth was this book talking about? So I started to journey my way back to base, and ended up running into a group of psycho vultures again. I managed to take out a bunch of them, but then when going behind the tree, there was just way too many for me to handle. So I decided to run away since I was pretty low on food, and I luckily made it back to my base in one piece. I then created a brand new farm for my wheat, and then I decided to search for a cave and go mining again. So I explored the cave, mined a bunch of iron, redstone, glowstone, found my first diamonds, mined a bunch more ores, found even more diamonds, and then I found a pool of lava, created a diamond pick, mined some obsidian, and made some diamond armor. While returning back from my mining trip, I ended up running into some old base. Since I was running pretty low on food, I decided to borrow all the wheat and melons. And after a bit more traveling, I finally arrived back at base on day 35. On day 36, I crafted an enchantment table, enchanted my diamond armor and diamond pick, and then decided to go exploring for a little bit and ended up finding a swamp. While traveling through the swamp, I ended up finding a massive skull. What in the world was this thing? Wow, I am definitely gonna climb to the top. And so I began my climb to the top of the skull. I pillared my way up, and after a little while, I finally made it to the top. Okay. Finally made. Oh my gosh. Screw this. Okay, I can't kill this thing. This must have been the zombie serpent that the book was talking about. I knew I needed to get away fast, so I got on top of the pillar as quickly as I could and jumped off. I knew there was water below, but I needed to dodge the lily pads, and luckily I landed safely. That was a really close call. So I decided to get the heck out of the swamp, but I ended up finding some sort of nether-looking swamp, which had blazes. So using my axe, I took out a couple of blazes, noticed there was nether wart around the lava lake, and noticed there were some striders too. Mined a bunch of soul sand, got even more nether wart so we can make a farm later, bought a giant magma cube, and killed a bunch more blazes so we can make some brewing stands later. While returning home, I ended up finding a parrot, which I tried feeding seeds, but it wouldn't get tame. So after feeding it some more, I finally tamed my new parrot. I think I'm gonna name this guy Hopper Jr. So I brought him back to my base and sat him down under my tree. For the next few days, I started to grind a bunch of skeletons at my skeleton grinder, and went mining for as many ores as I could, mined a bunch of diamonds so I can complete my full diamond set, enchanted it all, smelted up all my ores, and using gold and bone meal, crafted amplified bone meal. Using jungle wood and iron ingots, I crafted reinforced wood. And then in the giant crafting table, I crafted a tier 2 treehouse. I then gathered my crops and found a new place pretty close by to place down my treehouse. I first cleared out some of the land because it was in the way. Then I placed down my tier 2 treehouse and watched as it sprang up from the ground. This treehouse is a lot bigger than the other one, and I was really excited to move into it. I first looked around and noticed there was a lot more stories in this one. Then I got to work on making myself a netherwart farm and started to furnish the inside of my new treehouse. I then moved all my stuff from my old treehouse to the new one, and then using a god apple and 4 diamonds I found earlier, I crafted a bisect apple. You can go to bisecthosting.com and use code Forrestbono for 25% off. Hopefully this comes in handy later. I then went to the shore and gathered my sugarcane, created an enchanting room, and also made the same room into a brewing room. I then went to the beach to get a bunch of sand, as I was gonna need glass bottles to brew potions with, and then using some blaze powder and sugar, made my first strength and speed potions. I then crafted some golden apples, enchanted myself a bow as I had many arrows from my skeleton farm, and returned to the nether swamp that I went to earlier. I killed a bunch of blazes, mined some glowstone, and on my way back home, I ended up running into something. Yo, what is that? I immediately drank my potions as I ran into the Sirenjaw. It was able to jump extremely high and dive back into the water. So I backed up onto land and it still jumped into the air. I started to attack it with my axe, but shortly after, my shield broke. Thank goodness I made my bow, because this time I was gonna have to keep my distance. But it swan dove up and back into the ground. It then came back out from out of the ground. I knew this was my chance, so I started to bow it down while it was still up. I went back in for another hit, started to bow it again, and before I knew it, it was already daytime. I kept on bowing it and trying to get hits in, but I couldn't get close enough with my axe. So I ate a golden apple and went in trying to hit it as much as I could, but I couldn't get close enough. It then knocked me super far away. So I ate another golden apple and started to bow it while it was still above ground. I tried to go in for a melee hit again, but then ended up finishing it off with my bow. Wow. That was surprising. I picked up the loot, which ended up being Sirenjaw scales, and made my way back to base. I ended up running into some Skur Buffalo as well on the way back. These guys look like they've been around for a while. On day 66, I finally made it back to base and crafted myself full Sirenjaw armor. I also made a diamond sword to make a deep water cleaver, and I think I looked pretty awesome afterwards. I then went down to my skeleton grinder to grind out some levels, and enchanted my new weapon with sharpness 4 knockback 2. I then enchanted the rest of my armor with protection 3. I then decided to brew a bunch of instant health splash potions, gathered my netherwart farm, brewed some strength 2s and speed 2s, and crafted 2 shields just in case one of them breaks. I then decided to look for painful again, and while crossing a river, electric eels started to attack me in mass. There were so many of them, but I tried taking them out. One by one, I started to take them out, but there was way too many. They had me down to half HP. Luckily, I had depth strider on my boots, so I was able to get out and onto the shore again. Electric eels were not something to be messed with. I then ventured through the swamps again, and ended up finding some strange looking swamp on on day 76. Everything looked dead. I peered through the trees and ended up seeing what I saw before on top of the skull. It let out a gigantic roar and I drank my potions. It poisoned me and I started to land some hits. Its jaw was huge and the bites did a lot of damage. I threw down a pot and started to attack it with my deep water cleaver. It started to land some hits as well, so I did my best to keep my HP up. It then let out another huge roar, so I backed up a little bit and started to bow it. I then went in for another hit and defeated the zombie serpent. I realized it dropped something on the ground and it ended up being some sort of weapon. Skullcrawler's mace? So maybe this thing was called a Skullcrawler. Before I had time to think, I heard a huge roar from behind and saw there was multiple behind me, so I ran away. On my way back home, I ended up running into some tigers, which I thought I could take out relatively easily, but they actually did a lot of damage even though I was in my full Sirenjaw armor. I started to take them out one by one, but I had to throw down a few pots to stay alive. After backing up and eating my last golden apple, I ended up taking out the last two. After a bit more travel, I finally made it back home on day 81. I went back down to my skeleton grinder to grind out some levels and enchanted my Skullcrawler mace with looting 3. I then brewed some new potions and started to get to work to gather materials for my stage 3 treehouse. I was gonna need a good amount of wood this time, so I chopped down as much as I could, crafted a bunch of reinforced wood, and then went back down into the mines and mined a bunch more diamonds. Using those diamonds, I crafted enriched bone meal, and then using the giant crafting table, I crafted myself a tier 3 tree mansion. After a couple days of looking, I found a pretty flat area which was filled with bamboo, so I cleared out all the bamboo, which was nearly a double chest full, and now with a much flatter area, I threw down my stage 3 tree mansion. This thing was huge and had a lot of space for me to place everything I needed inside. I took a quick tour of the interior of the base, realized it was already complete with a chest room, but I decided to get some wood and start working on creating a watchtower on the top of the tree. I feel like this would be a nice touch, and for some reason, when it came to tall buildings, I loved creating watchtowers on top of them. So after completing the watchtower, which I thought turned out pretty well, I decided to travel back to the nether biome and ended up fighting some weird looking nether frogs. They set me on fire and did some decent damage, but I ended up taking them all out pretty easily. After making it through the nether biome, I ended up running into King Kong. All of a sudden, it let down a giant hammer fist, killing a Skullcrawler. I tried to approach it to see if it was friendly, but it tried to attack me. So I drank my potions and started to fight King Kong. I had to be extremely careful, as I didn't want to get hit by that giant slam, but it hit me anyway and did a ton of damage. When I looked behind me, a giant boulder came at my face and knocked me all the way back. I knew it was time to pop my bisect apple. It gave me jump boost, which was helping me a lot, but King Kong knocked me back super far, and I took a lot of fall damage. It then threw another boulder at me and slammed me again, but this time I was able to block it. I started to attack it with my cleaver again. However, it threw another boulder, which sent me flying into the air. Luckily, I reacted in time and threw down my water bucket, breaking my fall. I then used my bow a bit and then got knocked back again, taking a ton of damage. So I healed back up, hit it a bunch more, and it slammed me again. I went in to try and get another hit and defeated King Kong. Whew. My gosh, that was close. I guess that settles it. And after that intense battle, I decided it was time to head back home and made it back in one piece on a rainy day. From days 98 to 99, I decided to say goodbye to Hopper Jr. as I wanted to get off the island now. The island will probably be overrun by skullcrawlers now, so I needed to get off of it fast. On day 100, I found a place that seemed oddly familiar, so I traveled along the coast and then...
Forrest, is that you?
Painful. I thought I'd never see you again.
You should have seen the Icarus tigress I had to fight.
What the heck is that? I had to fight a massive Sirenjaw in the swamps.
What in the world is a Sirenjaw? Oh well, let's get the heck out of here before anything else happens.
If you made it this far, make sure to watch Painful's video. We each had different objectives, which made our videos a lot different. Thanks so much for watching, and take care.